Women are powerful creators. The Align Women podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. I'm your host, Amy Evans. I have authentic, intimate conversations with my guests that highlight their paths to success, their struggles and accomplishments, and the things that currently excite, motivate, and inspire them to turn their visions into reality. Welcome to the Align Women podcast. I'm Amy Evans, your host and the founder of Align Women, a leadership and networking organization for professional women. This podcast features female entrepreneurs, leaders, and other professional women who've demonstrated agency and innovation in their personal and professional lives. With me today is Wendy Luttrell. Wendy's the CEO of C-Suite Goals. She's an inspirational executive business coach, and she's also the chair of her own Vistage group. Welcome, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Amy.
I am excited to have you here. I want to talk about the work that you do with business leaders. You've said some interesting things in the course of our conversations. You've been a CEO of a pretty big company yourself, and that experience led you to be an executive coach. And I want to hear about some of the challenges that you experienced being the CEO of a big company and what that led you to do in terms of supporting other executives.
Thanks. Well, I think the biggest thing I came across as a CEO was isolation and feeling alone. Even though I was a hired gun CEO, I worked for the owner. She expected me to have all the answers. And I always feel like at some point you can Google things, but at some point you're going to need some input from somebody who's been there and done that. So that's like really what attracted me to doing this, was helping others. And when we exited Bedhead Pajamas, that was the company I was CEO from, we sold it to our largest competitor. I really looked at my life and what pieces of it were working and what pieces weren't. And I wanted to have less stress, less travel, spend more time with my girls, have a better work-life balance, all the things that I help my entrepreneurs and my leaders with. So I have to walk the walk, if I'm going to talk the talk. So I really looked at that. I loved the mentoring piece of my job. So I had always been a mentor and really helped people up the ring in fashion. And so I turned that into coaching. I had known about Vistage, so that helped me, kind of jump that wall.
And I want to talk about Vistage in a second. I want to circle back, though, to what you said about isolation, because that's the piece that sticks out for me in conversations that we've had previously. What did that look like for you? How did that manifest for you when you were CEO?
Well, I think that the thing about being a leader and leading companies is that you have to set the tone. And in order to set the tone, you have to show the most strength. And it's hard when you really don't, and I hear this over and over again from leaders, is that they don't have anyone to turn to. They say, like when they join Vistage or when they join my other peer group, Leaders Lifting Leaders, they say, oh, thank God my wife's going to thank you for this because she's sick of hearing me talk about my business. So there's so much strength in numbers and so much strength in community. And I think that's what I have to, I really want to educate my leaders on, is that you don't have to do it alone. I did it alone for so long. I got up in the morning. I was so stressed out. I was starting my day at 5 a.m. I ended my day at midnight, and I felt alone. I felt like I had to make the decisions myself. The buck stopped with me. It was a horrendously large responsibility. You have people's livelihoods on your shoulder and the company's livelihoods, and you feel like if you take the wrong turn, then everything's going to blow up. So I really feel like creating a community of leaders is the way to combat that and to bring back your strength, your confidence and your strength, so that you can be the best leader that you can. So I am a firm believer. I think that having a peer group, having a community that supports only you of other like-minded leaders is the best way to grow and to have strength when you're leading companies of any size. It could be an solopreneur, with only one person, and it could be a huge company.
tell me how that experience feeds into what you do with Vistage. What was it that attracted you to that organization, and what is it that you do with them now?
So Vistage is a worldwide peer group company. We have 25,000 members in the world. And what I loved about the community of Vistage is that it's a community that's always learning and always growing. They give me a tremendous amount of support, training. I have my own Vistage group that I'm in LA of other Vistage chairs. And I go to that monthly and I do my KPI. I work on myself in that. And so I feel that it's such a good support system. But mostly I think what attracted to me about it was the training and the ability to call upon world-renowned speakers. I mean, we have an amazing docket of speakers that I can choose from for my group. I have tons and tons of leadership exercises, leadership speeches, basically anything I'm looking for is there. And my support system is amazing. I mean, I wish if I had it to do all over again when I was a CEO, I would have just paid for Vistage out of my own pocket. We were totally bootstrapped. So we didn't feel like it was worthwhile or we could afford it. But knowing what I know now, it pays for itself 20 times over. If you make one better decision in a year that saves you money or makes you money, then it pays for the whole entire year of Vistage. It's astronomical. Not to mention the bonding and the strength that you get from the community of having like-minded professionals sitting next to you that you can say, hey, what do you think about this? Is this a good decision? Is this a bad decision? You know, have you ever had this happen? So it's just a tremendous support.
Yeah. And you are a bit of a unicorn in Vistage in that I think you shared with me there are 40 Vistage groups in LA, and you're one of 4 female leaders of Vistage groups. So that makes you a little bit special. Tell me what that experience has been like.
Well, I had no idea that was the case when I came on board. My class, Vistage they only hire ex-CEOs or business owners that have walked the walk and experienced everything kind of in nature. And it's not easy to get hired by Vistage. But just to tell you how hard it is, there was 42 people in my class at Vistage, my training class, and 5 of us launched. And in my class, 5 women launched, which is very unusual. Now we're all over the country. One's in Boston, one's in Ohio, one's in Chicago. So we're kind of spread out across the country. But I had no idea. So when I went to my first Vistage chair meeting, I was shocked to be like one of the only women around the table. And it has its advantages and disadvantages. Most of the chairs have been chairs for a long time. And there's not a lot of turnover. But it is challenging because sometimes you want like-minded people around the table, but it also gives me a different point of view. So that's the whole purpose of having different kinds of people around the table.
For sure. Well, I want to take that in a direction and ask you a question that I love asking women leaders, which is what can we do in our position, having climbed some of the rungs of the ladder, having had some of the both positive and negative experiences of running businesses and leading people and building teams and ups and downs. What can we do to help more women take on leadership roles in business? What's one thing that you recommend that other women do in order to make more space for women to come into leadership roles?
Well, I think sometimes women are our own worst enemy. Sometimes we're the hardest on each other. And we have to just look at it as we're hiring the best person for the job, be it male or female. It just needs to be the best person. But I also am a firm believer in mentoring. Mentor someone, help people in your industry, move them up the ladder, because it will help you discover more about your leadership too.
I love the idea of mentoring, and obviously that's something you mentioned that you did when you were bedhead, and you really turned into a next career in terms of coaching. And one of the terms that I see floating around kind of partnered with mentoring now is the idea of advocacy. So not just mentoring in terms of sharing my experience so that your experience can be maybe a little smoother or a little easier, but also being an advocate for women who maybe want a particular career path and helping to get them those steps up the ladder in order to achieve their goals. And I love the awareness about all of that, and that we have the ability. I have a friend who's been on the podcast, Judy Hoberman, who says, if I can just help one woman a day, I'm happy. And to be able to do that is
so true. Yeah. All of the women or men that have worked for me in the past always knew that if they were coming in to work for me, I would always say, you're under my chicken wing now. You're not going to ever be out of there. So I get calls all the time about, do you know of anyone for these positions? I'll move people around like a chessboard from where they're at, or they'll call me and they'll say they're unhappy. We'll talk about why. We'll dig into what is it that they're looking for, and I'll try to make a match. I'm a huge networker. My mom used to say I networked in kindergarten. I'd be like, hey, do you like horses? This is my friend Leanne. She loves horses, and you guys should meet. So I think I just do that my whole life. And so if someone tells me, I think I have 3 or 4 people on my docket right now that I'm trying to help find the right position for. And sometimes I always call it laddering. Like, you can find a position. It might be a ladder to where you really want to go, but you should know where you want to go. You should know where your ultimate position lies, and then you can get there. And sometimes you get to that ultimate position, you reach your goals, and then it's time to make a new one.
Right. Yeah. That's the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm going to build this thing. Now I want to go build another thing. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And my mindset now is much more, have several avenues, several projects, look at the big picture and figure out how you can touch the most lives.
I love that. So I give my guests the opportunity to ask me a question. Very, very few of them take me up on it. But you asked me one that I love, and it's a driver for you. So you asked me what makes me passionate. And I know that's a question I'm sure that you ask a lot of the people that you work with. And so I've been thinking about that since I've been preparing for our conversation. And what makes me passionate is showing women that they have choices. And that comes from a very old place in a childhood that was not one that I would wish on anybody. And showing women in all ways that they have options and choices, from going from bad relationships to good relationships, from learning how to communicate better to traveling around the world and showing women that they can, that it's safe and okay to go explore on your own, to starting businesses, and particularly financial independence and security are a really, really big thing for me. I had another woman on the podcast recently, Wendy, who is a fascinating story. And she said, I thought very saliently, that when women understand their finances, they know that they have choices. And that still, I think about that, and that gives me goosebumps. And so in all ways, in all things that I do, I am very, very passionate about, like you said, demonstrating, really, because in order to show somebody that that's possible, you really have to live it first. So living it and showing and being an example for women that there are lots of opportunities out there. That is absolutely what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Well, as a mother of 2 women, young women, I have to be the example, set the example, show people what can be done, do it with integrity and passion, and other people can follow that. Sometimes we just need to see an example. If we didn't grow up with any examples of strong and amazing women, then how would we know? I was lucky enough to have a mom that was a maverick, strong, amazing woman, but not everyone has that.
Right. I totally.
And she wasn't always that way,
Right.
She wasn't always that way. My parents got divorced when I was about 14, and my mom had to reinvent her life from scratch. So I think that women can do anything. I mean, people can do anything you put your mind to.
For sure. For sure. Well, tell me how all of this that we've talked about comes together in Leaders Lifting Leaders, because I know that's something you are very passionate about. It's something that I've participated in. So tell me how you put it together, where it came from, and who it's a fit for.
So Leaders Lifting Leaders started at the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was we were all still in shock and we didn't even know if we should leave our houses. We were really living in a state of perpetual fear, which I feel like is one of the biggest hurdles that leaders and entrepreneurs have to go through every day, is that fear, that constant niggling of what should I do? Should I do it? Should I do it? So, and one of the biggest reasons why I started it was because I needed more support during this time. So what I did is I put together a meeting on Mondays and Fridays. They're 2-hour meetings, and they're really meetings to talk about how we're feeling right now. Not anything else. We don't have to talk about, our companies or decisions we're making. It's really just how we feel about leadership issues and how they're relating to us at this time. So we talk about things like imposter syndrome, when we feel like, oh my gosh, who left me in charge? Like, is somebody going to find out and kick me out? We talk about courage, which is something that everybody needs right now. We talk about grit, which is the number one thing they say that makes entrepreneurs and leaders successful is grit. What does that mean to you? What does grit mean? We talk about fear. What are we scared of right now? What's freaking us out? What's keeping us going? And we talk about being stuck. Because I think about every other day I get up and I don't want to get up. So during this time, I just want things to be back to normal. And we're all grieving and we're all looking at this from different points of view. But the one thing all leaders have in common is they want to make their businesses work during this time. So this group is really for entrepreneurs and small business owners. And that's my passion, is really helping take those businesses to the next level. So it's a place for someone who maybe didn't really understand what coaching was about, or what peer groups were about, or what having that kind of support would be like, because they've never experienced it before. They don't really understand what that means, to come and just get a taste of it, to get a 2-hour taste of what does it feel like to have other like-minded leaders around. Obviously it's around a Zoom call right now, but around a table where they can really concentrate and focus on you and listening to you. We talk a lot about how we take care of our employees, but nobody talks about taking care of leaders and CEOs. There's nobody out there that talks about it. Like, who's taking care of us? We're really the ones, entrepreneurs rule the world. The small businesses are what's going to rebuild our economy, and we have to take care of each other, because no one's going to take care of us.
For sure.
So that's what it's really about.
If someone is interested in getting more information about that, where can they get in touch with you?
You can email me to my email, which is wendy@csuitegoals.com. And you can go onto my website, which is csuitegoals.com, and read a little bit more about me and inquire there too. So there's a place there you can click through, whatever works for you.
Perfect. And we will put all that connection information into the show notes so that people can see it. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today on the Align Women podcast, Wendy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for having me, Amy. I love you. I love your group that I'm in. I'm in your Align Women group, which is amazing. And I appreciate you so much that you are such a support system for women and entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. And look for more amazing conversations with more women at alignwomenpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening to the Align Women podcast. You can find more episodes with more amazing women at alignwomenpodcast.com, and visit alignwomen.org to learn more about our leadership and networking organization. This is Amy Evans, and you've been listening to the Align Women podcast.